In ancient Israel, a fascinating story developed that would captivate people for decades. It's the story of Elijah, a prophet who saw amazing events and displayed great faith. Today, we will follow his path, ending in a feat so remarkable it challenges belief, outrunning a chariot. Our narrative starts in Israel's period of intense spiritual strife under King Ahab's rule. The Canaanite deity, connected with fertility and storms, Baal, was challenging the devotion of Yahweh, the God of Israel. Inspired by his Phoenician wife Jezebel, Ahab had spread the Baal's religion over the country. Elijah first surfaced in this chaotic environment. Imagine this, a guy from modest means before the great King Ahab. Elijah says something that would rock the kingdom with unflinching confidence, declaring there won't be dew or rain for years unless he says otherwise. Yahweh names himself. God orders Elijah to shelter close to the Cherith Brook while drought sweeps the country. There, ravens bring him meal and bread every day, a wonderful gift keeping him through the early drought days. But with time, even this holy source fails. A sobering reminder of Elijah's prophecy, the brook evaporates. Then God sends Elijah to Zarephath, where a widow would support him. One of the most defenseless members of society, this widow is gathering sticks for a last dinner before she and her son are expected to die of hunger. She chooses to trust, though, as Elijah asks her to prepare him bread first, ensuring supplies won't run out. Her faith is honored as her bread and oil last day after day. Still, the widow's challenges are not done. Her son passes death from illness. She questions Elijah in her agony about if his presence has brought God's punishment into her. Elijah answers actively rather than defensively. He brings the lad to his room and asks God to save his life. The young man is raised in a striking show of divine mercy. God orders Elijah to show himself to King Ahab once more when the drought runs its third year. Elijah meets Obadiah, a high-ranking official in Ahab's court who secretly worships Yahweh, on the way. Obadiah struggles between his devotion to God and to the king. Obadiah had bravely kept 100 of Yahweh's prophets in caverns, supplying food and drink at great personal risk during Jezebel's persecution. Elijah's response when he at last stands before Ahab is one of accusation and wrath. Representing Yahweh, Elijah, however, is convinced and challenges Ahab to a spectacular confrontation on Mount Carmel between the prophets of Baal and himself. There is great drama in the scene on Mount Carmel. From morning till lunchtime, 450 prophets of Baal get ready for their sacrifice and call on their deity. Their shouts and dancing around their altar go unheard. Elijah starts taunting them as the day draws on, implying their deity might be sleeping or busy. Though the prophets of Baal reply by screaming louder and cutting themselves, still there is no response. Elijah turns next. Using 12 stones to symbolize the 12 tribes of Israel, he reconstructs the altar of Yahweh. He digs a hole around it, sets the wood, and gets ready for the sacrifice. He has the altar covered in water 3 times till it fills the surrounding trench, seemingly against reason. Elijah walks forward and prays, everything ready. Simple but strong, his remarks ask God to respond so the people would know Yahweh is the actual God. The answer comes right away and is outstanding. Fire comes from heaven and consumes the stones. Dust, water in the trench, not only the sacrifice and wood. Declaring the Lord, He is God, the people fall on their faces. Elijah tells Ahab to get ready for rain after this exhibition of divine might. Ascending Mount Carmel, he waits at the summit. 6 times he orders his servant to stare toward the sea, and 6 times the servant returns empty-eyed. On the 7th time, though, a small cloud starts to show on the horizon. Before the rain ceases, Elijah tells Ahab to ride down. The protracted drought ends as soon as clouds darken the sky, and the wind picks up, and heavy rain starts to pour. And now we arrive at the moment that titles our narrative. The Lord's might finds Elijah as Ahab rides out, and the rain starts to fall. Tightening his garments around his waist, he runs all the way to Jezreel ahead of Ahab's chariot. Think on the scope of this accomplishment. In the ancient world, chariot travel was the fastest available. Elijah was rather remarkable in order to outrun a chariot, particularly across a great distance. It is a potent emblem of the force and speed that might result from one being driven by a more important goal. This incredible endurance is a fitting monument to a day full of amazing happenings. It shows that heavenly power reaches not only to govern over the elements and life itself, but also to the physical capacity of people who serve honestly. Over history, these events have been seen in different light. While some view them as symbolic depictions of spiritual truths, others consider them as actual displays of God's might. The fire from heaven could stand for divine love and knowledge, falling to devour our earthly desires. The drought and later rain could represent spiritual despair preceded by a flood of divine truth. Elijah's incredible speed could stand in for the force and speed of people who follow divine intent. From whatever perspective, Elijah's narrative transcends mere narrative of supernatural events. This story tells faith, bravery, and the strength of trusting in something better than oneself. Against a king corrupted and hundreds of false prophets, Elijah stood alone. When all appeared lost, he turned to supernatural provision. His path illustrates what may happen, regardless of the situation or opposition, when one person totally commits to their values. Elijah's example teaches us what? Maybe it's about having the bravery to defend what's right, even in front of strong opposition or outnumbered count. Perhaps it's about believing in a higher power, even in apparently terrible situations. Alternatively, it may be about the amazing things we can accomplish when working toward a goal bigger than ourselves. Elijah's narrative tests us to reflect on our own life. Where is our faith placed? In the face of resistance or apparently beat odds, how should we react? Though it means standing alone, are we ready to advocate what we believe in? Moreover, the narrative asks us to consider the origin of actual strength and power. Elijah's path reminds us that there may be a power outside of our own that we could be able to access in a society too frequently celebrating personal success. It implies that we could be able to accomplish things we never would have imagined possible when we start to line ourselves with a higher goal. As we draw to an end this remarkable story, kindly comment. Of Elijah's path, which one most spoke to you? Was his relentless faith in the face of overcoming challenges, his direct challenge of corruption, alternatively possibly his apparently superhuman abilities? Did Elijah's narrative motivate you? Think about telling someone who would benefit from a reminder of the strength of faith and tenacity. Also, make sure you subscribe to our channel if you have liked this story. Elijah's story that shows how faith, courage, and a touch of divine help can overcome seemingly impossible challenges.